Moving on to the political impact of all of this, a new Gallup survey found that more than 3/4 of Americans are saying the economy is getting worse. And then a Quinnipiac University poll revealing that inflation is the top concern among voters. Joining me now, RealClearPolitics co-founder and president, Tom Bevan. Tom, the American people know what's going on. They don't need a GDP report to tell them.
They do not. And as you mentioned, inflation by 3 to 1. It was 30% in that poll. The next most important issue on the minds of America was immigration at 10%. So it is an order of magnitude above every other issue. And the problem for Joe Biden and the Democrats right now is Biden's overall approval rating is 41%, and our Real Clear Politics average on the economy, it's 37.5%. If Biden's not able to get that number up, at least somewhere in the mid 40s, but from the Democrats' perspective, close to 50. I mean, they are facing a wipeout in November.
So, Tom, and what you're seeing because of that, Biden and company are clearly and desperately searching for some sort of political win. And on that, here's what President Biden said today about student loan forgiveness. Listen to this.
I am considering dealing with some debt reduction. I am not considering $50,000 debt reduction, but I'm in the process of taking a hard look at whether or not there will be additional debt forgiveness, and I'll have an answer on that in the next couple weeks.
They already extended the payment moratorium on student debt again until the end of August. And they are essentially treating responsible Americans who paid off their debts, Tom, or didn't take out debt, or the more than half of Americans or adults who didn't go to college. They're treating all of those people like suckers. And so I think that for every vote they're trying to buy, you have to ask the question, how many are you going to lose because of these policies, these bailouts?
Yeah, no, I agree, Dagan. I mean, it's not a clear-cut winner. In fact, it may be a political loser for the administration. Here's the problem, though. I mean, they've got their left-wing base has really been pushing for this since day one. This was an issue during the campaign. Biden refused to go along with it during the campaign, but now he's in a position because one of the groups that he's suffering most with are 18 to 34-year-olds, and he thinks not only will he be able to curry favor with the left wing of his base, but with younger voters, and he needs younger voters. The Democrats need younger voters in November. But to your point, there are multiple sections of the electorate, again, people who didn't take out debt, took out debt and paid it off, or this 60+% of Americans that never graduated from college, don't have a 4-year degree, who are going to pay for this, and they are not happy about it at all. And so I do think, look, at the end of the day, in midterms, right, the Democrats, they need their base to turn out. They're going to lose if they don't get their base, but they also need swing voters. And to the extent they're choosing policies that alienate one or the other group, it's not going to work out well for them. And right now, they don't have anything that unites both swing voters and their base. And again, everybody is concerned about inflation as their number one issue. And this is not doing anything to address that as well.
No, when you have a debt repayment moratorium, that you're bailing out doctors. 40% of student debt in this country is held by people with advanced degrees, like doctors and lawyers. So you're giving them handouts to go out and spend when they're employed in 6-figure jobs, but you're driving up inflation by doing that. And the inflation is crushing people who don't have college degrees at all and are trying to drive to work and put food on the table, maybe working on an assembly line. In terms of, what did you say, swing voters and getting out the base, this is the man that the Democrats need to remember, because there are a lot of moms and dads out there just like him. Listen to this.
I just want to ask one question. My daughter's getting out of school. I've saved all my money. She doesn't have any student loans. Am I going to get my money back? Of course not. So you're going to pay for people who didn't save any money, and those of us who did the right thing get screwed.
Yes, that's right. And she was laughing at him. That was in early 2020 in Iowa, a father confronting Elizabeth Warren. How quickly the Democrats forget, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine the hay that Republicans will make of this issue, the ads that they'll be able to run against Raphael Warnock and, Mark Kelly in Arizona and Maggie Hassan in New Hampshire. Just getting working class Americans to say basically exactly what that man said to Elizabeth Warren. I mean, it is a potent political issue that Republicans will be able to leverage I think, very effectively in the midterms. And so, but it looks like, again, Biden's trapped. He's probably gonna do this, as he said, within the next couple of weeks. And it's going to make some people in his party very happy and a lot of other people very unhappy.
The administration has already canceled more than $100 billion in student debt, according to the Wall Street Journal editorial page, through regulatory action and extending the pandemic pause through August. $100 billion. So they're rewarding crap garbage colleges who peddle $300,000 degrees in gender studies, and then the kids can't get a job when they get out of college. And they're also punishing people who are responsible and safe. And before we go, Tom, this is classic moral hazard, where you turn people who are responsible into people who are irresponsible and reckless because they think that they will ultimately also get bailed out down the road. Final word to you on that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it puts Democrats in a very difficult position because, as I said, and go back to this, and you can't emphasize this point enough, right? With inflation where it is and being the top issue on the minds of voters, anything that Biden does that doesn't address that, or in this case exacerbates it, is going to be met with dislike and disapproval from the American public. Where Biden is right now, at 41% in our RealClearPolitics job approval rating, will lead to, some estimates by our senior elections analyst, a net loss of 4 Senate seats. That's every toss-up seat, every incumbent Democrat that's on the ballot in November would lose their Senate race, and anywhere from 30 to 40 House seats. So if they're not able to turn this around, it's going to be bad news for them in just a few months.
Tom, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to see you always.